Hello, YouTube. All right, so today I want to talk to you about runes versus mantra. I very often am asked questions regarding these two sound sciences. People want to know which is more powerful. It's a very typical. People always want what is the best, which is more powerful. I understand the question, but it's also sometimes kind of silly because it's kind of like saying which is the best fruit, banana or peach, apple or tangerine. Which fruit is more powerful? I mean, they're both fruit. Um, but in this case, there are some differences and some similarities. And so before we get into that, what I want to share with you is the understanding of sacred sound science in Indo-European spirituality. So mantra comes from the Vedic Hindu tradition, and it is definitely a science, definitely a spiritual science. Runes come from the pre-Christian European uh, indigenous spiritual tradition, which is specific to the Germanic people, which is everybody in Scandinavia. Some people don't realize that Scandinavian is a Germanic language. There is a country called Germany, but Germanic, it means a whole group of people. It's a language group, and it has to do with all of the languages in Scandinavia, as well as English. The French people, before they adopted the Latin language, which is really, French is really just a bunch of Germans trying to speak Latin. I'm telling you the truth. That's all French is. It's just people trying to speak Latin with a really thick German accent. Um, if you look at the term les misérables, right? It's actually spelled les miserables. So really what's happening is you've got these Germans with really hardcore accents, and they're trying to say les miserables, and it comes out les misérables. That's all it is. French people get so bent out of shape about their language, and it's just a bunch of German people mispronouncing Latin. Sorry, I had to put that in there. All right. So the Frankish people, of course, all the people in Germany, the Dutch people, the people in Holland, and then all that place around there, all of that. Those are the Germanic people, and they originally all spoke one language. In fact, we can see this in the historical record. The earliest writings of runes, the earliest rune writings was in very similar to what we would now call Proto-Germanic, and it was a universally understood language among all of the Germanic people. And so they used runes, and runes are their own science in and of themselves. So in order to understand why are runes so powerful to chant, why are mantras so powerful to chant, we have to understand the Indo-European belief about sound and the power of sound. So if you look at the Vedic Hindu tradition, each syllable, whether it's a consonant or a vowel, is called an akshara. And so they have a lot of aksharas, a lot of syllables, whereas the Germanic languages, especially 2,000 years ago or before, you had a lot less. You had 24. Was it 24? 24. Yeah, 8 times 3 is 24, right? You had 24 sound syllables, and so the reason why the Futhark, the elder Futhark, you can see it here on this picture. It's in the bottom right hand. So all of those letters there in the bottom right, those are the sound syllables for the Germanic languages 2,000 years ago and before. That's why they call it the Elder Futhark. And you have newer futharks, you have newer rune alphabets, and there's more of them. And that's because the Germanic peoples' languages started to drift apart, and there started to become different pronunciations and different dialects. And so they started adding and removing sounds and syllables and all that kind of stuff. But 2,000 years ago, there was a common language among all the Germanic people, and they were mutually understandable, and you could see this in the runes because they used. Anyway, I don't want to get into all that. It's interesting for people like me who like language, but anyway. So the Vedics talk about the aksharas, and that the aksharas are sacred sound vibrations. I mean, we could just take the word sacred out of there. All sound does the same thing. The universe is actually made up of sound. What is beyond the physical of anything, my wallet, my phone, my body, my mala, my chapstick, there is a sound vibration. When you get to the root of it, it is sound. It is the vibration of sound that determines what is manifest. This is why music is so powerful, because music is sound vibration as well, and that's why we become so emotionally stimulated by it, why it can have such a powerful effect on the body. There's no shortage of videos on YouTube looking at sound vibrations and different hertz levels and all the controversies around that. So we intuitively know that sound creates the foundation for all of physical reality. Now, there is a difference in understanding. Mantra is made up of aksharas. So the Sanskrit language is a lot more complicated in terms of there's a lot more syllables, a lot more vowels, all that kind of stuff. Ancient Germanic was fairly simple. Like I said, there was just 24 of them. You can see there in the bottom right what all of them are. So hang on just a second here, I got distracted by a text. All right, so when it comes to all of that stuff, we need to understand how to use these two sciences differently. So my experience with the runes is that the runes are, in fact, we're going even more basic, to more basic building blocks of the runes. And so the more basic the building block of the runes is, the more powerful they are. And I don't mean that in a quantitative sense like better or worse. It's just a question of power. And so when we're talking about mantras, we're talking about very finely tuned sound vibrations. When we're talking about runes, we're talking about the building blocks of sound. So for me, when I think of the runes and when I think of the universe, what we're talking about is the runes are sort of like the basic building blocks of everything in the universe. You can narrow it down to these 24 root sounds. When you're chanting a rune, you are tapping into a primal, very primal, basic substratum of reality. That's why the runes, when you look at them, they are talking about specific things. They're set up in threes. You can see there's 3 rows. In my experience, the top row is the physical, they're all spiritual, but we're talking about mostly the physical reality. The middle row is the psychological reality. And then the third row is the spiritual vibration. So we're talking about the 3 essences of the universe. We find this in multiple religions, even Christianity, which if you read the Bible, there is nothing in the Bible anywhere that talks about the Trinity. The Trinity is found even in modern understanding, mind, body, and spirit. We function in 3 dimensions. In the Germanic tradition, it was Odin, Vili, and Ve. In the Vedic tradition, it is Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. And in the Taoist tradition, it's the 3 ones. So we find this everywhere we go. That's because it's part of our reality. Mantra, we're dealing with a far more complicated system. So the thing about mantras is that mantras cannot be made up. I say that with, a little bit of, there's a little bit of bend to that rule, because you can, if you know the rules, you have to know the rules of how mantras work. You can take existing mantric sounds, seed sounds, words, and you can create a mantric equation. But when we're talking about like the 2 most chanted mantras in the world are the Savitri Gayatri mantra. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Vargo Devasya Dimahi Dio Yonaha Prachodayat. If you know that one. That is probably the most chanted mantra in the world. It's chanted by Jains, by Hindus, by Buddhists. It's chanted, and it's a very ancient mantra. And then there's the Triambakam mantra of Shiva. Triambakam yajammahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bantanan mrityur mukshiyam amritat. That also comes straight out of the Vedas. And it is a chant to Rudra, one of the earlier understandings of Shiva. And these are not something that you make up. These were things that people heard. So shamans would go into trance and they would hear. They would be able to shift their awareness to specific vibrations. And in a specific vibration, there would be a sound mantra, sometimes just a seed sound. And let me clear up some misunderstanding about seed sounds. So Om, what you see as O-M, Om, which we see the character for in the center bottom there. That's the Om. You see the dot there that looks like, the little diamond-looking thing at the top, like somebody's wearing a hat? That is actually an NG sound. So even though people pronounce it Om, it's actually NG. You can close the lips. Om. That's really what the sound is. That is a seed sound. And that is not something somebody made up. That is something somebody heard. But seed sounds, what even Vedic masters to this day, if you ask what are seed sounds, bija mantras they're called, many of them will say, they're nonsense power syllables, meaning that they have no meaning, but they just have power. And that is not true. We can see it in the runes here, in the runes in the bottom row there, the one that looks like a diamond, that is the Ing rune. Ing. Ing is a root seed syllable. It is a seed syllable for Shakti, for the energy that goes through the spine. It is the seed syllable for Indra, who is the lightning god. And it is also the original Indo-European word for sacred fire. Now, when you look at the ancient Germanic languages and you look at the Vedic languages, you'll see that there's a lot of words are similar. Some are exactly the same. There's some differences. We can use the Vedic language of Sanskrit to look at some of the words and some of the names in the Germanic language and see what the original was. For instance, Fre and Freja. This is the seed sound for fertility. It's been now changed over time. We're talking tens of thousands of years. It's now changed with a Germanic accent to Fre. But the original was pra. So we see a shift there where the Germanic language, they altered the translation. Now when it comes to ing, it's the other way around. Ing is the original translation of the Proto-Indo-European word for sacred fire. It was a god. One of the earliest gods was the god of sacred fire, and his name was Ing. Many people in the neo-heathen community make the mistake that Ing is a name for Frey. It is not. One of Frey's names is Ingunar, Frey. Nar means first cause or lord. It means that he has mastered Ing. Doesn't mean he is Ing, means he has mastered it. He is Ingunar. But in terms of the shift of pronunciation, the Vedics shifted from Ing to Agni. Agni. So Agni is in the Vedic the god of fire, the sacred god of fire, of sacrificial fire. So these are two things where we can see that the old seed sounds in Vedic Sanskrit, which they will say are nonsense syllables, actually aren't. They're actually very ancient words that have meaning. I could go into other examples, but I don't want to do that today. So this is a question and answer. I don't expect there to be a lot of people. I don't expect to be on here for very long today. Yeah, so if you have any questions, I'll take them. The way that these question and answers work, if you're new to the channel, is you ask a question by writing first the word question in all caps so that I can see it. Because otherwise I have to do this. I have to scroll through. Paul Kupari says Arnold, and then on YouTube search favorite drink, and I have to scroll through all that to get to the questions. So if you have a question, which I don't see any, I'm happy to answer that. Somebody really wants to know some trivial thing about what I'm drinking. I happen to be drinking, this is a kombucha cola, it has no sugar, and it tastes like a soda pop, but it's actually not. It's a very healthy drink. So do you feel better now? You know what I'm drinking? All right. Right, so I don't see any questions here, so we can keep communicating. But you know, if you don't have any questions, you know what I do is I end up selling you stuff. So what I'm going to do then, first I'm going to look and see if there's anything that I can share with you about runes. Do I have any rune video stuff here? I don't believe that I do. Oh, somebody asked a question. Good for you. All right, so I'm not seeing anything there, so I'll go ahead and answer the question. Jamie Turner question, what rune is most closely related to the Kundalini? Well, the answer to that question, and you know, this is, I have to say, these kinds of questions about the runes. Which rune is luck? Which rune is for this? Which rune is for that? There's nothing wrong with those questions, except it starts from a fundamental misunderstanding of what the runes are. So to answer your question, I've said this before, the runes are Kundalini. So if you wanted to awaken Kundalini, chant all of them, because they're all Kundalini, every single one of them. Runes are fire. People ask, which element is this rune and which element is that rune? All of the runes basically function from the fire element. Even the ones that have to do with other things like, you know, like laguj, which is clearly water. It's not water in an elemental fashion. It's. I talk about it. I'm not really in the mood to get into it right now, but so to answer your question, there isn't one rune for Kundalini. They are all Kundalini. If you wanted, and if you were listening to what I just said, remember paying attention and putting effort, two most important things. If you were listening to what I just said, I just answered that question. Because I talked about the sacred sacrificial fire, and I was telling you that the original name for that is Ing. And I said that the rune Ing is sacred sacrificial fire, which is what? Kundalini. Kundalini Shakti. I even said ing was a seed sound for Kundalini Shakti. You remember? So I answered your question even though you asked it. Pay attention, boys and girls. Let's see what else. Eddie Endres, question. In your apprenticeship / mentorship, how do you approach us refining our own internal dialogue with spirit versus exercising your specific I don't know. I don't understand your question. It's too complicated. When it comes to apprenticeship, everybody's different. So, there are some people that I have as apprentices who, when they show up for their session with me, they have questions, and the whole session is them. They've been researching questions, they've been watching my videos, and they have a question about this and that, and their own practice. So they have lists of questions. In some of them, you might think that we're just two friends having fun and sort of, kicking, whatever, just having a great time talking to each other. But there's a transference that's going on, and the questions do show up. There are some people that they don't know what to ask, and I say that's fine, because then we just let the unconscious mind bring to the surface. There are some people that want counseling on how to get through life, so it's really up to you. So you're asking me, how do I approach you when you've got this very specific question that I don't quite understand? Obviously, that's something you want to figure out, and that is something we would figure out in session. That you would talk to me and you would say, I'm trying to figure out refining my internal dialogue with spirit, and how does that work with exercising? You would ask me that question, and then you and I would go on a journey, and I would tailor my teaching to fit you. Okay? Jameson Colliday, question. When you go through talking about twin flame things, at times you disagree with the conceptualization of it. I'm confused on how to reconcile discussing things one disagrees with. Well, Jameson, you're right, I have been confusing, and I've done that on purpose for a bunch of different reasons. One of them is because I'm not against the idea of the twin flame. If what you mean by twin flame is somebody that completes you, that feels like your other half, I've experienced it. What I disagree with is the basic assumption of where twin flame came from, because the truth is, as I say in my videos, before the whole idea of twin flame came about, people just used the word soulmate. And soulmate meant one. 20 years ago, when somebody said soulmate, we didn't use it in the plural. We meant one. Did you find your soulmate? It's my soulmate, period. And then we started talking about, well, maybe we have multiple soulmates. I'm not against that idea either. And then now we've got this new thing. And the more that I look into twin flames, the more that I've come to realize that this really isn't coming from any teaching anywhere. It's coming from people who are in a lot of pain. And that comes from their assumption, their base definition of twin flame, which is that twin flames is a soul that's been split in half. So no matter what they say about, trying to talk themselves out of that, you start from a place, you know how I teach, is that everything starts from being powerful. And any teaching that brings fear or makes you limited or makes you a victim in any way, toss it. Because it will take you down a wrong path. So from the very beginning, the idea that you're half a person, and again, they'll go, no, that's not what it means. But no matter what they say to me, it doesn't change that. The other one is that there's this idea that some being above you created you and then split you in half. They don't talk about, there's a lot of, in twin flames, at least what I'm hearing people talk about Archangel Michael. And so there's a lot of Abrahamic monotheist assumptions. And most people in the world, but especially in the Western world, most people, even if they're not born-again Christians or Catholics, they still have been programmed to view the world through Abrahamic monotheist dualism. And so people like to use the word God. When people use the word spirit or source, they're really trying to just euphemize the word God. They don't like the word God, so they say source. Because they want to still talk about some creative being, but that it's not judgmental. And yet, they still want to, or they're just, whether they realize it or not, they just knee-jerk believe that they're created by something. I don't believe that. I don't believe that any of us are created by something. I believe that we are self-generated. I believe that all consciousness is self-generated. I have no problem with there being an original, source of, non-defined consciousness, but instead of it creating it, it just sort of, things come out of it. Like emotions. We create consciousness. People don't realize that a lot of spirits are emotions that people had that they didn't own and reabsorb back into themselves, and those feelings burst out of them and contain their own consciousness and run around. They become earth spirits, they become demons, they become all kinds of things. They get in line to become human at some point. So for all you know, you could have been some ancient being's emotion that got squished out of it, and you became your own. You know what I mean? This is how it's done. So I don't believe in that. I don't believe that. Again, the best way to see how people look at twin flames is to go onto people's channel. There are people whose entire channel are for twin flames, and listen to the comments. And again, some of these twin flame experts out there, this whole idea of twin flame, again, you're half of a person, you're half of a soul, and you're waiting for reunification. Who wants to live like that? I get it. I definitely relate to that. I can tell you that there were times in my life where I knew for a fact that there was another being out there that was my soulmate, was the word I would have used. And I can remember when I was married, towards the end of my marriage, which was not good. My wife, and it's not her fault. I didn't meet her needs, and it's because we weren't, meant to be together. And I would wake up in the morning, and as I'd be waking up in the morning, I had this dream, and I could feel it. I could feel the loving touch of somebody, and I could feel her hair on my back, and I could feel her kissing my back very lightly, in a very specific way. And I'm like, oh, I felt so loved. And then I'd wake up and I'd go, oh, I'm here. I'm stuck in this relationship with the woman I can't stand. And I thought it was just my unconscious, fantasies coming. Except that when I met my soulmate twin flame, that's exactly what she did. And I remember she touched me exactly the same way. Her hair was on my back. She was kissing my back, and it was like, oh my God, you're it. You're her. And I always had that feeling. So I relate to that part of it. But what people are doing is they're using here's the bottom line. This is the real reason why I don't like twin flames. People are using the idea of twin flames to justify staying alone and to justify not making themselves vulnerable to another person, because true intimacy is scary. And so the whole idea of twin flame and the whole idea of being a twin flame waiting for reunion, and especially, again, I was trying to say, you go on and listen to the comments of people on these channels. They will talk about a person, and they'll talk about my twin flame or my divine masculine. He's with a karmic, which means that he's married to somebody or he has a girlfriend. And these people don't get it. They're so broken and so sad and so lonely and so unwilling to have a relationship that they'll, instead of accept that their twin flame has blocked them and married somebody else and says, stop following me, stop texting me, I'm in love with somebody else, I have 2 kids. Instead of accepting that, they will say, well, he doesn't remember who he is, so I'm going to connect to him on the 5th dimension. And we're going to create, and they get into this fantasy world of having a relationship with somebody, but the real person is looking at them saying, leave me alone. I don't want anything to do with you. And so the denial is horrific, and I feel for them. They're obviously very sad. So twin flames creates this excuse for people to just stay alone and lonely and to sabotage their own success in relationships, their own intimacy. And then they get to, I mean, it's craziness. They used to lock people up for this kind of craziness. The bottom line is, it's not life affirming. It destroys your ability to live your life, and that's the thing I don't like about it. The things I do like about twin flame is I absolutely felt like, my fiance she was my other half. I'm okay if she wasn't. It felt that way. It served that function. And I'm totally open to having that experience again. And I'm looking for it. So I don't know if I answered your question or not. But it was a great question. All right, so Eddie Endres. So Eddie, your question is really intellectual. I don't get it. And you're not telling me your emotional need, what it is that you need from me. You're trying to figure out ahead of time. You've got an agenda of what you want to accomplish, which is fine. But you're asking me ahead of time, and you're trying to get me to spell out ahead of time in order to fit your agenda. If you work with me, I'm going to challenge your agendas, and I'm going to get you to go deep, but I need to know what your needs are. You know what I mean? I need to know what your needs are and what it is you're looking for. And then when you come, it's like when you work with a teacher, and this is the truth in traditional teachings. You go to India or you go to China. If you walk in there with that kind of a question, I want to know how you're going to teach me with this versus this and that versus that. You're dumping all of your assumptions about how the teaching is going to work, and the teacher's going to go, you know what? I'm not the right teacher for you. Thank you. There's the door. What they want is they want you to walk in and say, hello, Guru, I'm here to learn. What do you want me to learn first? And then if they want to know, they might ask you some questions, or they might just say, here, do this. Especially if you want to learn from a Chinese master. You don't walk in there and start asking them about different energy practices or different kinds of martial arts. You just walk in and you say, hello, Sifu, and they say, go stand in the corner on one leg. If you ask why, they say, there's the door. So it doesn't serve you, Eddie, to ask me that question. If you're working with me, you can ask me about these things and I can tell you, but I'm going to start looking for what I think you need to learn. And I'm probably going to tell you and give you things that you may not have ever thought of before, or you may not even think you want to do. But that's the student-teacher relationship. Okay? Your question isn't serving you at this point. Drop all that. If you want to learn, just go learn. If you want to learn from me, just learn from me. Okay? Jamie Turner, question, do you think semen retention is absolutely necessary to awaken Kundalini? Jamie Turner, are you new to my channel? Because if you aren't, then there's a few of my videos you haven't watched. Go onto my channel, learn how to search within my channel. If you don't know how to do that, figure out how to do it. On a desktop, you look for, where the menu is on my page. If you go to my Thunder Wizard DOTCOM YouTube page, look for how to search within the channels, click on the little magnifying glass and type in semen retention or even nofap. I talk about it for hours. I don't want to take up the time in this video to do that. Let's see what else. Anthony Jahir is asking a similar question about self-stimulation, and YouTube will automatically take it out if it's a bad word. Same answer to you, Anthony. Go and watch my videos about semen retention, and I'll answer that question for you. Diamond Sun question: when working with Ansuj, could you relate Ansuj to Loki along with Odin? I can relate all of the runes to Loki and all of the runes to Odin. Odin and Loki are blood brothers. And Odin discovered all of the runes, not just one. Can you do that? Yes, you can. But again, I want to say the same thing to you I said earlier. People are trying to pigeonhole the runes, and they don't understand the assumption of what the fundamental belief about the runes are. Runes aren't that limited. But yeah, I mean, if you want to ask, how does Ansuj relate to Loki? Ansuj is divine communication. And Loki is all about authentic communication. Ansuj is communicating with the gods, communicating with Odin. I mean, you can find all of that in there, but I think you're pigeonholing things too much. The duality of representing the duality of Ansuj. I don't know where you're getting that. I don't have a problem with it, but this is obviously your thing. This is your, this, what you're really doing with this question is you're not asking me a question because you don't know the answer. You have an intuition and a feeling, and what you want me to do is you want me to co-sign that for you and say, yes, that's exactly what that is. But instead of that, I want you to just go off, because I don't have all the answers. And knowledge is infinite, and you're obviously tapping into something that's touching you. You go with that. You go make a video about that, write about that. I don't have a problem with anything that you're saying. But I think you need to go and research that experience in yourself, what your intuition is telling you to do. All right. Alex Adams. Again, this sounds like it's going to be another one of those questions where he has a feeling and he's going to try to get me to co-sign it. Well, let's see here. Question, are you aware of multiple dark nights in spiritual awakening? I don't know what you mean by dark nights. You mean dark nights of the soul? Be more specific. Spiritual awakenings. Am I aware of multiple spiritual awakenings? I seem to notice more levels further than the initial first big dark. So again, this isn't really a question. I'm okay with it. You're wanting me to co-sign your experience. You start with a question and then you answer it. I seem to notice more levels further than the initial first big dark night awakening. I agree with you. That's been my experience as well. I think awakenings are a continuous awakening. There isn't one, there's continuals. So I don't have a problem with any of that. Question, is there a correlation to Thor, Hercules as human? No, that's not where the word comes from. It's a Latin word. So no, that linguistically, that's not a correlation. As in the Taoist practices, Eddie, your question isn't making any sense. You're asking about Indo-European language question about Thor and Hercules and the word human, and then you're asking me, is there a correlation in the Taoist practice that I've found for Thor and Hercules? No. It's an interesting question, but no, I haven't found anything like that. Jamie Turner question, do you have experience with bind runes staves? I do have very limited experience with it. I don't talk about it or teach it because, quite frankly, what I've seen about that is that that is a very specific science, and that people who in the past were masters of it, if you got one little thing wrong, you could actually curse somebody. Instead of heal them, you could make them more sick. So since I obviously don't have that depth of mastery, I don't even touch bind runes. I played around with it, but I don't teach anything that I myself don't feel like I have mastery over. So I can't, I don't have any experience or anything to teach about that yet. Paul Kupari question, Mike. Do you think as we grown up and met people at different times from childhood to adult, could we been quantum leaping person relationships from different lives and even in the same life? Sounds like a question that is really you're trying to share your experience. So the real question is, Paul, do you believe that? I'm open to the idea, but again, it sounds like you're asking me to co-sign your experience. Own your experiences. If that's your experience, I'm okay with it. Jameson called it a question. Casual use instead of 40-day ritual mantra use. What he's talking about is when you get a mantra from me, I will find in your chart a specific 40-day ritual for you. And a specific ritual mantra for you, and then I recommend that you do it for 40 days. And a 40-day vow means that you vowed that you will do it for 40 days. So the casual is when you're done with that, then you can just do the mantra at your convenience. And then if you want to, then you can commit to another specific time range of 10 days or 40 days or 6 months or whatever it is. And during those times of vow, you have a specific intent. So he's asking about that. You're saying the rishi appears above your head has made me afraid to chant any other mantra than the one from my chart. I don't recommend that people do more than one mantra at a time. The rishi is only appearing while you're chanting the mantra. So if you're asking me, is it okay to do multiple mantras at the same time, I don't recommend it. Especially if you're in a 40-day ritual. You know, it's like, you know, training in martial arts. You want to learn fencing, go learn fencing. You want to learn grappling, go learn grappling. If you're spending 8 hours a day trying to master both, you're probably going to be just sort of half and half. Go master one, go master the other. So if you're talking about during the 40-day ritual, yeah, don't do more than one mantra. I'm sorry if I haven't made that clear. If you're talking about after you've done your 40-day ritual and you're stopping and you're doing something else, the rishi's, you know, sort of like a, you know, a hologram just sort of disappears. And he's not there. And that's why you give it a little space. After you do one mantra, give your body space to, you know, sort of adjust. And then if you want to start doing another mantra, you can. And then another rishi will come and sit on your head and he'll do his job. A rishi just means a seer, a sage, an ascended master. Each mantra has a seer that has created it. So, yeah, I hope I answered your question there. Mike, question, Viv Bueller. During a shamanic journey, I've met goddess Hela. Congratulations. She gave me a necklace with a ruby pendant, like a pulsating heart, and told me to bury it at the roots of a huge oak tree. That's not a question. What do you want me to do with that? I'm wondering, what is this about? Why are you asking me? I'm not the one that had the vision. You had the vision. You tell me. Go ask Hela. It sounds like a really wonderful thing. Obviously, you know, she's wanting you to get more connected to your heart. So that's what I would meditate. I would meditate on your heart pulsating and all the feelings and things associated with that. She's obviously given you a tool to go make that happen. That's my take on it. But you had the vision, not me. You tell me. So Damak Thrilla, again, I've tried to make it clear to you guys. There's a certain word you guys are using, talking about self-stimulation. Every time you use that, YouTube automatically bans that. I can see it, but it bans it. And you're asking, first off, again, if you're going to ask a question, write the word question. Otherwise, I could miss it. So if you're new to the channel, that's what I need. Write the word question, then I'll know you're asking me a question. Otherwise, I don't know if you're just making a comment. If you self-stimulate when you chant a mantra, does it make it more powerful? Are you being serious? Is that an honest question? I'm not even going to address that. It doesn't sound like an honest question. If you're honestly asking that question, you obviously need to be working with a teacher. I don't know where that came, that you're figuring that you're coming to that conclusion, but you can tell by my answer how I feel about that. Charhe, question. I mean, bottom line is, my friend, go learn from a real teacher. Because I don't think that I think you're just trying to figure things out on your own, and it doesn't sound like you have any idea what you're doing. Go learn from a teacher. Charhe, question. Do you like Wagner's Ring Cycle? Is there any other music you know relating to Norse mythology? I'm not super familiar with it. I mean, I like it. I don't know enough about it to even comment. So I have nothing against it. I've enjoyed what little I've seen of it. All right, so Starseed, is this a question? I only deal with questions. I'm going to read this because I think you're new to the channel. I don't think you understand what I teach. I don't think you've watched my videos or how the Q&As work. But let me just see here. Yeah, so, you know, you want to criticize me? I don't give a crap. I didn't ask for your criticism. I didn't ask for you to help me in any way. So my experience is that unsolicited advice is abusive. You realize that you're being abusive to me? You spelled my name wrong, by the way. I have no interest in what your criticisms are of me. You're not my teacher. I haven't asked for your help. Why am I giving you such a hard time? Because Starseed, you are destined to be a teacher. You know how I know that? Because you can't contain yourself. You have to correct me on how to do things, how to teach. That tells me that you're not teaching right now. It tells me that you feel unworthy to be a teacher. And so what happens is when you see a teacher who feels empowered and feels confident, that stimulates you to feel your own self-hatred and your own self-shame and your own self-criticism. So now I see that you criticize yourself. Every time you want to teach, you criticize yourself. You know how I know that? Because you're spending time trying to correct a teacher on YouTube, a successful teacher on YouTube, in a video comment. It's bothering you so much that you have to tell me. You know, and you have to put things in all caps to let me know what I'm doing wrong. So instead of wasting your time, your valuable knowledge, obviously you have knowledge. And there may be even something I've said that goes against what you believe. Instead of wasting your time trying to take your self-hatred out on me and your self-criticism out on me, go make your own videos. Go make your own channel. Go write your own books. You have my permission to go and make a channel about how I'm wrong and you're right. Anything that gets you out there and teaching people. Then start charging people money for your knowledge. But I didn't ask for your. If I want your help, I will go to your channel and I will ask for your help and I will pay you money to teach me. Until then, it's none of your business how I teach. And I could care less what you think. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. How's that? All right. Starseed, no intention of being abusive to you. So then I've taught you something. Now you know. Unsolicited advice is abusive. You're also angry. You're unconscious of your anger. I can tell you have self-directed negativity. You have self-directed criticism. I can tell you criticize yourself a lot. Just by those two comments, I can tell that. I feel for you. I don't judge you. I don't criticize you. I'm reacting to your codependent, unconscious, aggressive, passive-aggressive connection to me. I can feel that it's driving you crazy. You know how I know? Because I used to do the same thing. You know what started me teaching? I used to go onto other people's channels and I would correct them. And I went, what am I doing? Why am I wasting my time correcting these people? And I started writing my own books and I started making my own videos. And look at me now. And when you do the same thing and when you get up off your ass and you actually go out there and take the risk and be seen to be the teacher you obviously want to be, guess what's going to happen? People like you are going to come to your channel and start criticizing you because you make them feel afraid. You make them feel, because then they're going to have to look at themselves and they start criticizing themselves because they want to teach. Let's see what other. Now, bear in mind, I've already said I don't want anything other than your question. So the fact that you keep writing things, you're again going against my request on my channel. You're a guest on my channel. And you keep breaking my requests. Again, that's a passive-aggressive thing too. You don't see how unconsciously aggressive you are, do you? Oh, you've watched me for a long time. So it's taken this long for you to finally come out of your shell. Good for you. So now I've stimulated you long enough that you feel the need to criticize me about how I teach. Good for you. Yeah, I'm putting you down right now. But the thing is, everything is a projection. You see me putting people down, so you're judging me. You think you know what my motives are. You think you understand why I'm doing this. Have you ever had a traditional teacher? You think I'm rough? You have no idea what a traditional teacher is like. Having been there and now having been a teacher, I totally appreciate what they were doing and I totally get it. You don't get it yet. But this is about you. So it makes me want to ask you all kinds of questions. I even tell by the name Starseed. That tells me all kinds of things about you. But on top of that, it makes me want to ask you about your parents, your mother, your father. Did they shame you? I mean, there's a lot of self-criticism that you're not aware of. I'd be happy to help you with that. But you're going to have to drop the whole needing to tell me what to do stuff. It's not going to work. It's only going to make it more. So again, what I tell people is the best thing to do is to ask me a question. If I come at you harshly, it's because I have a limited amount of time and I can see within you self-directed negativity that, in my estimation, is blocking your path. And I'm going to root that out. I'm going to go in there with a knife and I'm going to pull it out, and I don't care if it hurts your feelings, because I don't need you to like me. I have one goal here, which is to teach you and to help you. And if that means I got to give you the bitter medicine and be harsh as you think I'm being, which I can see that, it means that I think that's what's most helpful for you in the limited amount of time that I have. And if you have the ability to take your ego and your insecurity and your sensitivity, which we all have, I had to do it with my teachers, and just put it aside and listen and apply it, you might benefit from it. So really, every time you see me being harsh with somebody else and you feel the need to go and defend them, bear in mind that's your projection. You want somebody to protect you from whoever it was that was harsh with you, that criticized you. I'm not your father. I'm not your mother. I'm not your priest. I'm not your school teacher. So you don't need to project that onto me. You don't have to take anything I say seriously. But it will benefit you to look at your self-directed negativity that you feel I'm doing. That's coming from you. All right. Jameson Colliday question, finished 40 days. So any mantra work after should be dedicated with intent, not just mantra as meditation object. So Jameson, you're being too hard on yourself. You can do a mantra for whatever reason you want. If you're doing a 40-day ritual to a specific deity, that's one thing. When you're not in a specific mantra ritual, you can do whatever the hell you want. Play around and test mantras, see how they feel. I don't recommend doing more than one at a time. If you want to try a bunch of different mantras, try one for a week, put that aside, try another one. I mean, you're going to confuse the energies, but that's okay. You're testing things out. But you're being too hard on yourself, man. Do whatever the heck you want, man. Have as much fun as you want. How to start a new mantra cycle? Well, again, if you want to get serious about the mantra, then it's good to come talk to somebody like me and say, I'm looking at doing this mantra, and I'll tell you which planet it is, which deity, and I'll tell you what it's doing. I don't recommend, the doctor shopping. You remember that? You go to different doctors looking for, seeing somebody who will give you medication, I don't recommend doing mantra shopping because it comes from, and I know because I've done it, it comes from unconscious resistance to the change that one mantra is bringing you. So there is benefit to sticking with one mantra and going through the boredom and going through the wanting to change and wanting to shift. In fact, what a lot of teachers will say is if you've been given a mantra, do it for 1 year, because then you'll go through the different cycles of the different signs of the different planets, and it'll go through all aspects of you in that year. Sometimes it's boring. It's like any other relationship. It takes commitment and intimacy, and it gets boring and it gets too intimate. So I'm giving you freedom to do whatever the heck you want. You can try as many mantras as you want. Do it whatever way you want. I think there's benefit in sticking with one for an extended period of time. Having said that, follow your instincts, have fun, do whatever you want. I trust your instincts, my friend. Koya Moon question, do you believe humans are healthier when they're in nature? Yes. Could it help people almost like therapy? Yes. Starseed, again, you're not asking me questions. I mean, the more that you keep, the more that you talk, the more that you double down, the more I'm going to want to come at you. It's just the way I am. It's just, you're just better off just leaving it at a question. If I push buttons, just go deal with it, and no, don't take it personally. Rune question: do you think people who do qigong or breath techniques are less at risk of getting coronavirus? I think it would be irresponsible of me to say anything about that. The reason, I just got texted by somebody who's got it. So, and I'm in a safe place, and I was thinking, we're not going to get it out here. I think there's another person who probably has it. So it's all over the place. Do I think that doing qigong, it's definitely not going to hurt, but I don't want to make any unrealistic promises. It's definitely not going to hurt. It'll definitely help. Yeah, Starseed, you don't dislike me, but you're not being honest. And I'm willing to bet you're not honest with the anger that you have towards a lot of people. I bet you feel guilty about it. I bet you're a love and light person. Everything is love and light. You need to take a look at your negative feelings. You need to be able to give yourself the permission to have them. And when you think I'm being too harsh with somebody, it's okay with you to get angry with me. You won't hurt my feelings if you get angry with me. In fact, if somebody comes to me and says, you said such and such and it really angered me, I'll hug them and I'll say, tell me about it. Tell me about your anger. So stop pretending that you don't have anger and you don't have negative feelings, because what's going to happen is, just like with this, it's going to get to a point where it's going to build, and then you won't be able to resist, and you won't be able to stop yourself, and you'll have to say something, and you'll have to point it out with love. I'm just telling you, this is what I see in you, and they haven't asked for your help. I'm just telling you as somebody, as your friend, it's all coming from anger. It's all coming from your own self-directed negativity. It's driving you crazy. They're stimulating you. This is what a teacher will do. A teacher will be, and that means I'm being a good teacher for you, because I am now being that mirror that's stimulating all of the things within you coming out of your unconscious. I don't give a crap if you like me or dislike me. I could care less. My interest is in helping you. That's my job. My job isn't to get you to like me. This is the difference between a friend and a teacher. This is why teachers should never date their students, because once you start dating somebody, you want them to like you, and then everything falls to crap. I am a safe person for you because I have no agenda on you. I don't care if you stay, I don't care if you go, I don't care if you like me, I don't care if you dislike me, I don't care if you do what I suggest or don't do what I suggest. There is nothing that you can say or do that's going to influence me telling you what I believe is going to be helpful for you if you come to me as a student. And if you're on my channel, by definition, you think that I have something to help you with. You understand? Indica farmer sleeper, that's not a question. If I do not know my time of birth, how accurate of a natal chart can I expect? You can go do what's called a Vedic birth rectification. Go get that. I don't do that service, but somebody may, and go and find out. You can they'll ask you a bunch of questions and they'll narrow it down to the exact time. Then you'll have your exact time, and then you can get a reading from me. Eric Bordeaux, question: if I have physical body pain, should I just stick to the first 8 runes, or is it beneficial to use them all? What is the assumption that body pain has to do with anything to do with the runes? There's an assumption there. You're trying to get me to buy into an assumption that I don't agree with. If you have physical body pain, I don't know, is that because of an injury? More than likely, my feeling is probably from some self-directed, unconscious negativity. There's something in your life you're in conflict about, and it's causing you physical pain, and you're experiencing it in your body. The runes will only help you. If more pain comes out, it means that you're in sorry, I got distracted here. If you're having physical pain and it's not like due to a like you got your spine crushed in an accident or something, that's probably about emotional conflict. Read my book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. Go read that, and then you'll begin the process of learning how to identify when you're in conflict on an unconscious level. Runes have nothing to do with that. You can chant whatever runes you feel directed to. If pain comes up, it's just getting in there and ask yourself, what am I angry about? What is it that's bothering me? Because you're either going after your soul or you're trying to please other people. The person that I've just been giving a hard time, I won't mention them again, spends a lot of time trying to get other people's approval, and it's causing them to feel conflicted within themselves. So don't. Arnold, one of the reasons I'm using the Arnold voice and doing that is because I have a lot of respect for him. He says the same thing I do. When I was in Austria, my parents wanted me to become a policeman, and I wanted to become a bodybuilder, which back then in the 50s was like ridiculous. And I didn't care what they told me. I was going to do what I wanted, not what they wanted. He overcame his conflict to please his parents, and he pleased himself. And look at how successful he is. Whatever judgments we may have about him, he was extremely successful. Rune question: if humans individually can make themselves sick with mental projection, how then are mass viruses related to that? Don't waste your time with that. You're trying to figure it out. Your question is about you're trying to control things because you're afraid. Don't worry about things you don't have any control over. Just take care of yourself. Don't worry about it. Trust that the universe will take care of you. Follow whatever common sense things you can. I'm sitting here thinking, what common sense things can I do to avoid, now this virus is running around, and now people can't tell the difference if they've got the flu or the coronavirus, because some people get coronavirus and they get just a little cold and they're fine, and some people it ends up killing them. So there's a lot of things to be afraid about. Don't worry about it. Just be yourself. Just focus on your health. Don't worry about things you can't control. Trust that the universe will take care of you. Stop trying to figure it out. Your question won't help you. Zeralath question: are there THERE, THEIR is a different word. Are there mantras for each sign or nakshatra the moon is in? Yes. Each nakshatra will have a mantra. Koya Moon question: why do most people not have any memory of being a baby? I've always wondered about that. Because your brain didn't have the capacity to remember. It's just this tiny little brain. It takes a while for the brain to grow, and the memory is part of the brain. That's why. All right, no more questions. All right, I got to eat. I've got stuff I got to do. Oh, here's another question. Starseed question: do you still learn from other teachers? Why are you asking me that question? Are you asking me that question because you think that I'm so full of myself that I don't listen to anybody else? People that have that have said the kinds of things that you do, when I confront them on it and I tell them the same thing I told you, which is, hey, stop wasting your time trying to tell me what to do. Go write your own books. They'll say, well, even a master can still learn, meaning I'm supposed to learn from them, meaning that they've assumed that, what they really want is to connect with me. This is what you don't understand. Starseed, what you really want from me is you want to connect with me. You want to feel love from me. And if you feel like I'm rejecting you every time I'm harsh with somebody, because you feel it's happening to you on an unconscious level. This is all daddy stuff. You're projecting onto me daddy stuff, transferring your daddy stuff onto me. That means I'm doing my job, by the way. That a good teacher and a good psychologist is the same thing. You project your unconscious, you transfer all that stuff onto your therapist, your teacher. What you really want is you want me to ask you and get advice from you, because that will make you feel like we have a connection. So your question, I think, is passive aggressive. I don't think it's truly honest. But to answer your question, I have teachers. You've watched my channel, haven't you? So again, you know the answer to that. I have a teacher. I have mentors. I have a therapist. I've told you that. I tell you guys that all the time. You're not my teacher. I haven't asked you to be my teacher, and you don't get to decide to be my teacher. Anybody who is my student has asked to be my student. I haven't asked anything from you. Do you still have teachers? I bet you I have more teachers than you do. A real teacher is somebody you go to, and maybe you have a personal relationship with them, but a real teacher is somebody that there's an exchange. Usually money. Do you have a teacher you pay money to? Then I have more teachers than you do. So that question you're asking me, you should turn it right back on yourself. This is why you got to be careful when you start trying to play around with me. I'll go right in there and tear it open and look at your insides. It's best to stay quiet unless you have an honest question. I'm asking because I'm wondering if you see room for growth within me. Look at you. Look at how passive aggressive you are. Do you see the judgment that you have on me? You don't know me. You're wanting to know if I think I have room for growth? Of course I do, but what makes you think that you're the person to bring that to me? I haven't asked for your help. All right, there it is. All right, so that's it for me. As I said, I got stuff I got to do and I got to eat. And I got to send out some good vibes to my friends who are getting sick right and left. All right, so that's it for me, my friends. I'll talk to you later. Let's see, where am I going? All right, see you guys later.